Hello, and welcome to the Cat and Sam Show. We're so glad you're here. And today we're going to talk about connectivity, I believe. Is that correct? Am I connecting with you right, Miss Sam?
You are connecting with me right. And how are you, Miss Cat?
I am good. I'm actually feeling a little what they call wagasa.
What does that mean?
Me and you talk because who gives a shit anyway? There's a bleeper for Gary. Wagasa.
That's awesome.
You reach an age where you have wagasa.
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
It was pretty funny. Some lady.
So you're in that.
You guys have hit that age, and I'm like, what's that age? And she said, you're at the wagasa age. So what's wagasa?
I like that. That's a new word. I like that a lot.
Another
definitely
connectivity.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe that's why we connect so well.
Good luck with you today. All right, so
good.
What do you think, sweetie?
Well, so it started. We've had a thing called the Casey report over in the UK. So it's Baroness Casey did a review of the Met Police. One of the biggest things, and it's all about horrific failings in the force, but it's UK wide. It's not less so much Scotland, but England and Wales and Northern Ireland. But the failings are, but they're focusing on the Met. But one of the biggest things that came out of it that was really interesting is how there aren't the connections even from department to department, let alone police force to police force, let alone throughout the whole criminal justice system. Everybody's working in silo. You've got people outside organisations outside of the police doing the same thing. And then there was this big event, the Domestic Abuse Commissioner of the UK had this big event, the inaugural Festival of Practice, it's called. It was a big event in Manchester for, I think it was about 500 different organisations all came together and to share best practice. So to talk to each other, to find out what each other's doing, see what works, or listening to each other, talking to each other. And this whole week has been sort of full of communication and connectivity. And it just led me back to me and you. And I thought it's one of the simplest things and one of the hardest things, and actually one of the main things that abusers do is they don't and won't communicate. So you can think you're having a conversation. You can think that you've got it right. They're giving you this one piece of information and or it's a two-way street and you respond to that and you think it's normal. And then they move the goalpost. They change. You can never get that real connection. You can never get that real communication with them. And I just thought it just filters through. Connectivity and communication filters through everything. And it's such a key factor on every level to do with domestic abuse and violence. Like I had to ask over here, we call it domestic abuse to include all the violences. And we've got violence against women and girls, and we've got DA, domestic abuse. And you've got some people who think that view those as two completely separate things. So violence against women and girls is direct physical violence, stranger attacks, sexual assaults, rapes. And then you've got domestic abuse over here. When actually they're one and the same thing. And that is how it's being viewed by the police and by government and everybody. Or that's the directive for everybody for it to be that. And it's like, how can they not be one and the same thing? And I was very confused by it. but the way that messages get sort of twisted, and it brought me back to the abuser again, of that twisting of communication and us trying to connect as a human being with them and thinking that you've connected, but then you haven't, because it's not making sense, and they're shifting things around, and the thing that survivors are left with afterwards, where they over-explain, as I am probably just doing now, bless you, but they over-explain. Absolutely. You over-explain when you come out. And did you do this? Because I can't remember. I think there's an official term for it other than blathering on, that survivors are left with, which is
Well, I think what you're talking about is spiral thinking and spiral talking and trying to get, because the goalpost is always moved, we're trying to get to where we can connect, to have that connection and understand, get to an understanding that's without that confusion. And in those relationships, it's about confusion. It's about pulling you in close and then pushing you away. It's about not the perpetrator does not want you to get in close, because if you in close, that's where you could hurt them. And so they don't want you in that close. They're not looking for that closeness. And they don't have the ability to have that closeness, is my understanding from the stuff that I've looked at and listened to. And I think, we can ask different professionals about that to gear in on that. But I think it's a great connection that you're making in between these systems that we try to work, and they don't have connectivity either. It's one of the things that I'm liking when I hear about what you're doing in the Love Project, which we're going to continue over here in the States. It's just something I like that I hear from you about the Love Project that you're doing over there, which, if you think about it, when you had your first one, you had all these entities coming in from all these different groups, and at the end, they're all talking, which I think shows you they're not doing that, is what you're kind of seeing as you kind of move through those systems. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And that does seem to be, this is organically, the Love Project has organically happened, and it is going to continue happening. And it is about that connectivity, and it's surprising. And that's what happened. These events, both at like the Domestic Abuse Commissioner's event and stuff, they're allowing people to communicate with each other, to actually be in the same room as each other. Some people have met, they know each other online in that sense, but that it's different when you're with a group of people as well. It's a different kind of communication, and it's really empowering. These are really both, the love events, and this is what happened when we had ours last year, and it's happened with various other like organisations up and down the country. It's really bridging that gap. But to have this report, the Casey review, come out and say, people they just aren't talking to each other. They aren't communicating. There isn't that connectivity. So if there isn't that connectivity, if it's not joined up, if the dots aren't joined up, then how can that possibly be effective for victims and survivors, and to help them get back on their feet, but also to hold perpetrators to account, whether that's criminally or via support that they may need as perpetrators, or by things for them to attend, if that's what's going to work, you know. And it almost seems like it's like the easiest thing to do, but it's been the biggest thing that's been missed. So it's a bit of an epiphany this week, really, to realise just how far-reaching it is. You know, this lack of connectivity and communication, and that's why I love what we're doing. You know, we're not going to agree all the time. We're not going to get it right all the time. That's not what we're here for. You know, we're here just to connect and communicate with people. And if somebody's got ideas, if somebody wants to comment, if people want to share what we're doing, that just helps that connectivity across society. So, you know, hopefully that's what people do. They like what we do, and they'll ring the bell and share, and, you know.
One of my thoughts is in all that you're saying as well is, I want to hit on like the competitiveness that's in business or in jobs or in departments instead of the connectivity. And I think us in what we do is wanting to connect to our community, the DV community, but we're also wanting to very much connect with the community in a whole, in that our communities can understand what it really is, not what you think it is, and to talk about it, because it is not talked about. And, it's like, oh, nobody wants to talk about that, or, it's too sad. And it's not all sad. We have, a lot of success stories, a lot of growth, a lot of, you can look at people who've been through this, and they have such depth of spirit in what they've learned, and a compassion for each other, and a compassion for community and people, just to understand. You know what I mean?
I do. And I completely agree with you. And I hadn't thought about it from that competitive angle. I mean, I'm not, my career wasn't in the corporate world. So, I mean, there's competition, obviously, in acting. You're up for jobs all the time with other people, and invariably you see the same people that you're up against time and time again, because you're of a type, But in terms of department to department and things like that, I hadn't thought of it like that, and that's true. But certainly in terms of the domestic abuse community and reaching out externally, and that does seem to be happening, and the understanding that domestic abuse and violence isn't other, it isn't separate from society, it isn't a contained little piece of society, but that it's actually interwoven throughout our society from top to bottom. It's in our institutions that we're supposed to trust, like the police, like medical, doctors and stuff. It's even in I'm absolutely devastated. The abuse and bullying and everything is in our fire service. When did that happen? When did that when was that allowed to be happening? When did we take our eye off the ball? Because this is everywhere. But the brilliant thing that I'm noticing from a few years ago, and this is with decades of work by umpteen, just millions of extraordinary people who've gone before, starting from Erin Pizzey and the suffragettes even, if you like. But there does seem to be a shift of people understanding that this isn't some little minority, this isn't some strange little corner of society. It's actually everywhere. And because it's everywhere, we all need to at least know about it and do our best to understand it, because it's rife at the moment. It is like a virus, and the only way we're going to pass that information on is if we communicate with each other and if we're connected to each other.
Right. I absolutely agree. I mean, I think about the war at home, if only someone knew, Facebook page started in 2014. And when it first started, there was a lot of pushback from people coming forward and saying, this isn't true. You should just shut up and go away. You don't know what you're talking about. All kinds of abuse on there that was a constant. And now we have people that are coming on who are, I think I might be a narcissist. I think I might have these tendencies. I'll get them in the back room as well. I just want to gain knowledge. I want to understand what this is and how I can, and that's what we want to do. I mean, that's how you build community. And, I think about the millennials and the younger kids coming up and how they came out really hard and said, this is not okay. We don't like this in our society for the bullying happening at school, or, the bullying happening at home, and domestic violence, and why as a community are we allowing that? And they took a lot of backlash for it. And, it's kind of like we have to listen to each other. Otherwise you don't get any growth. We have people on our in our group that we talk to that come on as regulars from ageless, because that's it, that's it, all the way down to in their 20s. And the reason we work is because we talk and we listen to each other. But if we talk to people that are even older than I am, they had to ask permission from their husband to have a checking account that was just in their name, or a credit card that was Mrs. blah, 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 because it couldn't be just her by herself. That didn't happen until 1974. And if we don't push up against the current thought and the current way that we're doing things that is archaic or that is hurting our society, then how can we move that connectivity forward or move the society forward? It's not going to work. And so I love what we do. I love how we're doing it. We're only a little part of it, but we do what we can.
And that's it. And that goes back to what you were saying. I mean, people who are involved with this and people who have survived this or are going through it, and even those that haven't, God rest their souls, are some of the strongest, most incredible, kindest people I've ever come across in my life before. And they're phenomenal, They're far from this image of sort of weak, pathetic creatures at all. They know how to survive. And I think once you get, for a lot of us, once, you and me both, once we get to a place of relative stability and safety, the last thing you want to happen is for it to happen to anybody else, because it is horrific. We don't live, neither you nor I live in countries that are at war. So we don't expect to be on a war footing every day. But we have a massive sector of our society, especially if you include the children as well, who are at war every single day and dealing with those same,
and I would go as far as saying
issues.
I would go as far as every minute in some cases.
Yeah, but it's like every minute of
minute.
every day, 24/7. When you're in it, that is what you're dealing with. It's the same. The principles of it are the same. You know, you might not have a physical bomb dropping on you, but you might, and it might be, you know, there's a physicality. If there's a physicality happening, you know, of loss of life and destruction, and how do you survive? And so for years and years, so they're phenomenal people, absolutely phenomenal survival and life skills that they have. But you shouldn't. It's that understanding that we might not physically, as a country, be at war, but there is war happening every day.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a tough one, and and I think we talk a lot about the correlation between the prisoners, not prisoners, but the veterans when they come back and they have PTSD, and the importance of being included in that group, instead of it's not that bad, and
I actually heard a high-level officer confirm to me that it absolutely is on the same level as terrorism. Like legally, that's how it's being viewed now. So for that, and it should be, and it is, but for that to actually be official, and to hear somebody saying that is official, it's when I sort of think about how far, even just in the last few years, I mean, I've only ever I've come to advocacy very late in the journey of all of the, like I say, these incredible, mainly women who've fought this cause for so long. But to actually see it, there's definitely been a shift literally the last year or two, I'd say, in terms of people's understanding and conception, even in the last year. I don't know. Have you found that?
Yeah, like we're now in positions where we're being reached out to in big communities, asking us if we'll help them with certain projects. We have your project, the Love Project. We have the fire that took her, which is coming out about the far ends of domestic violence, comparative to your movie that talks about how that leads up to that fire that took her, and it's done in a way that Hollywood has not been able to capture, that looks like too much, like it's over the top, instead of it's just us talking. I mean, that's one of the brilliance of your movie, is that you're talking as if you're talking to your best friend about what this actually is, in a way that is inclusive of everyone, because everyone is affected. It's not just the person that it's happening to, because their friends, their family, their kids, all of them are included in that group. It's not just that one person. And, that's reaching out to that connectivity instead of families going, I don't want anything to do with that because it's not my family. It's not my situation. And our group and our things that you and I both do together and you and I both do separately is reaching out to community and say, yeah, we're here. We hear you. And I'm just so blessed by my connection with you and what we do and in our little part.
Absolutely. And like talking of connectivity now, without Jason Figgis, who directed and edited the film, without, October 11, that connectivity, he got me, I got him, without Simon Golding, who put us together, without that connectivity, Love as a film wouldn't exist, because everything was really equal in terms of I couldn't have made it without Jason. Jason couldn't have made it out without me. I couldn't have written it without Simon because, and Simon couldn't have written it without me. So it's all about that connectivity and putting people together. And that's when you can create tools and like the fire that took her and
But let's take that trail out just a little bit further.
Go.
Your connectivity in reaching out to a page that you were like, I'm not sure if, right? And then our connectivity of reaching across, the big pond, as they call it, and saying, what could we do? And other people coming in saying, I think you guys should do a podcast because I think it would really work well in people wanting to hear. And then us reaching out into community. It's not just one person.
No.
It's the conglomeration. The collective. And that's a better word. And then being open to it instead of, no, I don't want to listen. No, that didn't happen. Go back to status quo.
And or I'm ashamed of it, or you should be ashamed of it. No, actually, it's just something that happens, and looking to what's happening, like with the fire that took her, and your Facebook page, and the connectivity all around the world is phenomenal, and I think that's such a huge part of why we are moving quicker now towards a resolution, towards domestic abuse and violence being something that there is zero tolerance for at some point, and that is it feels reachable. 2 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to say that. I couldn't say that. Now you can feel the momentum, you can feel the change, and we've just got to make sure that momentum carries on and that those changes actually are embedded, that they are real, that they do reach our young, that, this becomes as intolerable as other brutalities. End of.
So if you like what we have to say, hit that bell.
Share that thing and press like. That thing.
And
share
comment
us.
and let
share
us know.
Us around. Spread us far and wide.
If you're able to comment.
Yeah.
If you're not in fear of being, safety is always a big issue for us in anybody watching that can't share and comment. We understand. We just want to get the messages out there so that people don't feel so alone, and they know they have support, and we keep moving forward.
Connected. We might not know who you are. You might not comment. You might not share. You might not ding the bell, but we're connected.
Right. We know you're there.
We know you're there.
All right, let's hang this one up for today. What do you think?
Right, darling. Yeah. Bye-bye, sweetie.